What's up guys, Dennis Films here with another tutorial, and today we're talking about Adobe Premiere Pro and the basics of the program. So if you're just starting out, this video is geared towards you. And if you've been using the program for a little while now, you may or may not learn something new. But before we get into it, let's cue that intro. All right guys, now that you're in the program, we're gonna first go to new project. And the first thing you're gonna see is name and location. So the name is just the title of your project. We're gonna call this Adobe Premiere. You can call it whatever you would like. And then location is just where the autosave or the Adobe projects will be saved. So you can just hit browse and then just choose wherever you would like it to go. And after you have done that, we're gonna hit OK. And then boom, it gets terrifying. But it really isn't. I promise it's simpler than it looks. So you may have a different interface than what I have. The only difference is what workspace you're using. Now, I don't know what the default of Premiere is gonna pull up, so I'm gonna show you exactly what workspace I'm in. At the top, you'll see assembly, editing, color, effects, audio, and basically those are just different workspaces, and it just changes around where things are placed. So for the tutorial purposes, we're gonna be in editing. And if you don't see this at the top, you can go to the left-hand side under window and go to workspaces and then hit editing. And now that we've got that done, let's get into the import. So first things first, we're gonna import our footage. Now there's two ways of going about this. You can double click. Oh, let me mention the import portion is in the left-hand corner of the interface. You can double click on import media to start. It'll pull up files, so you can just go to your file or your clip and just double click on it and it'll import it. Or you can go to your files manually, which is kind of what I do. And so I'm gonna find my files that we're gonna be using, and you're just gonna click on it and drag and drop into that little area. And as you see, it'll have the folder. And to open the folder, you're gonna double click on it, and there's all our footage. So it may be showing you in a different perspective of your footage or clips. At the bottom left-hand portion of the screen of the media import, you're gonna see right here under list view or icon view. Now it can be whatever you prefer. I prefer icon view so I can scrub through the different clips and see which ones I want to use. As you can see, you can just put your cursor over it and it will show you kind of like how YouTube does now, but it will give you a little preference of everything. And what we're going to do now is we're going to choose a clip that we want to cut up and put in our timeline to start editing. To do that, you're going to double click on your clip. And now that we got the clip in the source portion of the interface, I don't know why I call it interface, it could be whatever. But anyways, we're gonna scrub through it, just see what we wanna use. And let's see, I wanna have this clip start from the wide and then end up at the close like that. So let's go back and we're gonna set our points. So basically what the in and out point is what portion of the clip you want to put in the timeline. Instead of dragging the entire clip and then cutting it up in the timeline, you can kind of pre-cut it in the source portion of it. To start our starting point, you can hit I on your keyboard, or you can go to the bottom portion of the source screen and hit mark in. Either way works, they both do the same. I like short keys, so I'm gonna kind of explain the short keys as we go, just so you can edit faster. So now we know where we want the clip to start. So let's drag it till we want it to end. So let's end it when it's close on Doc, which is the artist, by the way, Hip Hop Doc, check them out. Now we're gonna hit O on our keyboard. This is the out point. This is where we want the clip to end. Or you can go right here at the bottom where the mark in was, right next to it, there's mark out. You can just click on mark out and that will bring up where you want the clip to end. So we can take this little bar right here at the bottom and stretch it out if you like, so you can get a better view. We'll stretch it out. And as you can see, this again is where it starts and ends for the clip. Now we're going to start our sequence. And to start the sequence, you can either drag in a clip onto the timeline and it will automatically make the sequence for you depending on what the dimensions and frames per second of the clip is. So let's see what the actual information is on this clip. So we can go to the right hand side of this and hit metadata, and right here under frame rate it shows us that it's 23 frames per second. And let's go to resolution, so scroll down to video info, and right here under video info you can see that it's 3840 by 2160. So that is what I want my timeline to be. I want it to be 4K and 24 frames per second. So when I export, it will export as 4K 23 frames per second. But you can also change that if you like when you go to export. So let's drag this clip in. We're going to go back to source. And there's a few ways that you can put this on your timeline. So you can take the whole image and just drag it into the timeline, and that will start the sequence. Or, let me delete that. Or you can do, let's say you want to do the video only without the audio. You click on this film strip right here and drag it in, and it will bring just the video by itself. And vice versa for the audio. You click on this waveform next to the film strip, and you can just drag it in the timeline. We'll just have the audio. Anyways, I just want the video. So basically I'm just going to grab the film strip, drop it in, and now we have our sequence started. Now to double check to make sure everything's correct under the sequence, we can go to the top left hand corner under sequence. You can click on it, go to sequence settings, and as you can see it's 23 frames per second or 24 frames per second, and the frame size is 3840 by 2160. Now that's what we want. So now we can hit OK. Now that we have our sequence started and the footage is in the timeline of the clip we want, now it's time for cutting. So this is the fun part, and this is mainly what you're going to be doing in the program, is cutting footage. So to start off, we're going to go to the left hand side of these icon bars. I'm not sure all the technical terms for this, but you'll see the razor tool. It looks like a little razor blade. You can click on that, or you can hit C on your keyboard and it'll pop up the razor tool. Now to cut, you're just going to click what part of the footage you want to cut. So let's say I wanted to cut right here. We'll cut it right there. And you just hit delete if you do not want that clip. Or if you want to bring it back, you can hit Control Z or Command Z if you're on Mac to bring it back, which all that is a redo. So I'm going to delete it again and hit Control Z. Now that we figured out the cutting portion of it, which again, you can cut anywhere and everywhere as many times as you want on this, depending on what you're trying to cut or what you're trying to do basically. So another way of doing this is you can drag the clip out. As you can see, there's this red arrow at the end of the clip. So we can drag this out and get more of the clip itself, or we can drag it in and bring it back to where it was. And again, Control Z to redo. A good bit of times it depends on what you have it saved as. I'm getting too technical, I'm sorry. We're just doing the basic. Now that we have the sequence and we got the cut where we want, let's add another clip. Now the second clip I'm gonna add is gonna be 1080 and 60 frames per second. So let me double click on it, go to source, let's figure out what point we want. So we're gonna do this again. Let's say right here. I'm gonna hit I on my keyboard to start the mark in. And then let's go right here. And we're gonna hit O on our keyboard to mark out. Now I still don't want the audio, so I'm just gonna drag the video itself onto the timeline. And as you can see, it's on here. But you'll see that it's not completely framed in. Because it's a 1080 clip on a 4K timeline, the frame size is wrong. So, simple fix. We're gonna right click on our 1080 and we're gonna go to scale to frame size right here and click OK. And then boom, we got it. So now it's upscaled and boom, it's in there. Okay, now that we got the 1080 in there and it's scaled to frame size, as you can see, it's right there. If you want to slow this down, what I'm recommending, The reason I shoot 60 frames per second is for slow motion. Let me delete this clip, and we're gonna go back to our import settings, or to the import file. We're gonna right click on it. We're gonna go to modify, interpret footage, and assume this frame rate is 24 frames per second. And boom, we got it right here. And as you can see, we're gonna scale it to frame size so it fits the frame, and then we got it slow motion. Now, when you do that, your in and out point on the source portion of the menu is going to be different. Because it was slowed down, it changed the time mapping of it, I guess you'd say. So we're going to have to go back and redo the mark in and mark out. So now that we got that, boom, and scale to frame size, now everything's part of it. That's a pretty dope shot. And okay, so now that we got that done and we cut our footage and we got it placed where we want it, let's talk about, well, let's go back to the resolution. So if, depending on how fast your computer is, kind of depend on how good your playback is, how smooth it is, or how laggy it is. So if you do not have like a high performance computer, you can drop this resolution on playback. So right now it's at full, it's showing it's 4K full resolution, but let's drop it to 1/8. So now that it will play smoother. So boom, of course you will see a difference in the quality, but that does not change your actual video quality. It just changes the preview of the quality. So don't worry about that. It does not affect your end result. So next, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to make a title. Now there's two ways about making a title. One, you can go back to where the razor tool was, and at the bottom of it you see type tool or text. Now that you can make a title with, but I prefer not to do that. So I'm gonna show you how I do it. I go to file in the top left corner, go to new, and then go to legacy title. And you'll see that the video settings are 3840 by 2160, and the time base is 24 frames per second, which is exactly what we want. And then we're gonna hit OK. You can also name this as intro. Let's say intro title. I spelled that wrong. Okay, and hit OK, and you'll see this nice, beautiful legacy title. Okay, now that that's popped up, we're gonna click on the frame, and let's type. Let me change the font, which you can change the font at the top, or you can go to right here on the right side, and it'll pop up, and you can change it from there. Let's just choose a basic font, or actually, let me go to Gotham. I like that font. Okay, we're gonna click back on it, and let's make our title. Let's say Adobe, let me put it in all caps. Adobe Premiere Pro Tutorial. And boom, we're gonna center it. In the left corner, you're gonna see a horizontal and vertical line. That's just gonna center it in the frame if you click on both. And since it's white, we're gonna change it because you can't see it. So to change the color, you're gonna go to the bottom, hit to color, you're gonna click on this, and you're gonna see a color palette. Let's change it to yellow, or we'll change it to like an orange mustard kind of color. And then boom, we got what we want. Also, you can change the font size right here. And you can just, make it larger or smaller, or you can stretch it out, just depending on what you want. Okay, and now we're gonna exit out of this now that we got our title, and now the title is in our folder. So as you can see on the left side where the import media was, it's in the folder. So we're gonna take that title, drag it onto our timeline, and boom, we got it. And you can take your cursor, bring it to the end, and shorten or lengthen however long you want the title to be. So let's make it short. And that looks good where it's at. So this brings us into the effects portion of it. So if you're in the editing portion of the workspace, you can go to where your import footage was, and you see these two arrows right here. You're gonna right click it, you're gonna scroll down to effects, and then if that's not there, you can go to window and have effects control put in. Oops, sorry, wrong thing. Effects right here, and it will place it into that window. So just hit effects, boom, it's in the window. And let's do a simple effect, cross dissolve, which basically is a fade. You can fade in and out of a clip, or you can transition it with a fade. So I'm gonna show you both ways. So let's take the cross dissolve, put it in the beginning of the clip because we want the title to fade in. So we'll put it on top of the title, and I'm gonna hit play. And as you can see, it's on there, but we wanna make it a little bit longer, just so it's a more gradual fade. So there we go, got it where we want it. Or you can put it at the end. So we'll take another cross dissolve, drag it onto the end of the title, and get it to fade out. And then the next thing you can do with it, you can use it to transition clips. So we're gonna take cross dissolve again, and we're gonna put it in between the first clip and the second clip. And what it'll do is it will fade into each other. So I'll play it real quick. And as you can see, let me turn the title off. And to turn different sections of the timeline off, say you want to hide a clip just so you can see something, you'll see these little eyes, and you can just toggle them, and they'll turn on and off certain clips. So if you want to just turn anything on and off, boom, simple as that. So as you can see, it transitions into the clip, the next clip. But let's say you want to make it shorter, make it quicker as far as a fade into the next. You can do that by just shortening it like we did with the title, or you can make it longer and drag it all the way out. So now that we got all that done, that's pretty much the basics of it. But one thing before you go, I want to show you Lumetri color. Now this is how you color grade your footage. So usually when I color grade, I like to add an adjustment layer. So it's not changing individual clips, and it's overall changing all the clips at once. So let's go to the bottom right part of the screen, and you'll see new item. We're gonna right click that, hit adjustment layer, and then same thing like the title popped up. It's gonna show the 3840 by 2160 and 23.976 frames per second, because that's our sequence. And we're gonna hit OK. And just like the title, it's in the bin. So you may have to search for it depending on how many folders you have, but it's in the bin. We're gonna take it, drag it onto the timeline, and let's see, we don't want it to change the colors of the title. So we're gonna put the title above the adjustment layer. Anything below the adjustment layer, it's gonna change when you do the color correction and color grade. So we're gonna take the adjustment layer. Let's just do something simple. Let's just crush the blacks on it. So the adjustment layers click, and you have Lumetri color on the right hand side of the screen. Now you have basic correction. So if you ever work with Lightroom or Photoshop, this will look familiar for you. So just take the adjustment layer, we'll change the exposure. As you can see, it's making adjustments to the image itself. But I'm gonna do something simple. So I'm gonna go to curves right here, and I'm just gonna crush the blacks. Just crush them, boom. And let's go to the creative tab, and we're just gonna boost the saturation a little bit. As you can see, it's not changing the title. It's not changing the colors. It's not changing the brightness or anything to the title, because the title is above the adjustment layer. So let's hit play. Let me get rid of the title. Just hit play, and as you can see, overall this color graded. Of course, this doesn't look the best. Let me make this look better. So let me go back. We're gonna import a LUT. Now this may be too far in ahead for y'all, but I'm just gonna do it just because I can't stand to look at bad colors. So I'm gonna go back and change all the settings I did to these clips. Saturation or turn down. I do not like this, so we're gonna go to the color wheels. Oop, wrong thing. We're gonna go to the curves, and I don't like these yellows in it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the eyedropper tool under hue versus saturation, and we'll click on that. And as you can see, it's picked out the isolated color, and I'm gonna drag it down to desaturate that color. And oh boy, that one looks rough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to individual clips. Now that we got our basic color grade on the adjustment layer, now we can go to individual clips, because the adjustment layer is gonna affect everything. So not every clip is exposed or lit the same. So we're gonna do individual adjustments. Let's do 0.2 for this. And as you can see, this is really dark. So we're gonna take the adjustment. Let's kind of go back to the adjustment layer and cut back. Oop, there we go. I'm gonna cut back on the blacks. But anyways, I'm getting too far. This is just for if you're just starting out. Let's finish this off with how to export your video. So let's say your video is complete. This is the final video. We're gonna hit Control M or Command M if you're on Mac. And it's gonna bring up this export settings. So Premiere already has presets involved. So we're gonna go to Format right here. I'm gonna do H.264, which is what I like my format to be. And you can go to preset, and we're just gonna say YouTube 2160p 4K Ultra HD at the bottom. Click on that, and then we're gonna do output name. So we'll name this rough. We'll just say rough draft, something random. If I can type, hit save. And export, and boom. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps show the video and recommend it to other people. And if you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one.